Can you introduce yourself, your background and your expertise, as well as your current role?
My name's Pete Barbrook-Johnson. I'm a lecturer in the geography department here at Oxford. I'm also a researcher in the Institute for New Economic Thinking. And probably most relevant for today is that I'm also the deputy director of the Agile Initiative. My own research interests are really kind of at the intersection of kind of economics and sociology. I'm a social scientist by background. I mainly work on environmental and energy policy topics, and I do a lot of work, kind of co-created work with policymakers in that space, both in the UK but also elsewhere.
In your experience, what are some of the key elements for successful collaboration between researchers and policymakers?
Yes. For me, the key things is to really think about this as a long-term collaboration. So really see this as a collaboration between equals and understand that you as a researcher have a huge amount of blind spots and misunderstandings, and you need to be humble in that sense. The other thing is that you can't prepare in a kind of comprehensive way to ensure that everything's going to go well in a kind of collaboration between research and policy. There's going to be random things pop up. There's a lot of tacit knowledge and contextual knowledge that you can't really be taught. You just have to experience it. So yeah, I think just dive in, be keen but humble and see it as a long-term endeavor.
What methods or tools have you found the most effective in translating scientific data into actionable policy recommendations?
I think it's not really a method, but the broad approach of co-creation and co-design, I think is the obvious answer. And so I think working closely with policy partners, with stakeholders throughout the research process, from inception and the basic idea and the aims, through to writing outputs together, to doing events together, all of that. I think co-creation is the tool that's going to get us there. To be more specific to my own research, the method I've used a lot with policymakers is systems mapping. So this is a method where you draw basically together a causal description of a system and then use that as a kind of all-purpose resource to inform lots of other thinking. We often build these system maps together with as many stakeholders as we can convince to be part of a process, and just the conversations themselves can be useful. And so bringing people together might just be the output as much as doing something with the map. So I think those types of tools are really useful because they allow you to synthesize lots of different types of evidence and data along with kind of expert opinion, policymaker kind of narratives.
Do you have any recommendations for researchers to ensure that they remain adaptable to a changing policy landscape?
The kind of standard advice we give, and I think is good practice, is to be doing a lot of horizon scanning for risks that might be coming up. Obvious things like changes in government or big kind of shifts in the public discourse that might affect things. Those can happen quite obviously in an unpredictable way, but sometimes we kind of know big things are coming up. So looking at those, but also they look at that kind of horizon scanning for opportunities as well. And I think actually having a plan ahead of time of how you might respond when opportunities come up. It's quite common for people, definitely in my experience in the policy world, to sort of say, well, actually there's this report or there's this event and it's happening in a matter of weeks or months, and suddenly they would be useful to have something for that. So I think having a rough plan for how you're going to react and what criteria things might need to meet for you to suddenly drop everything to work on something else, that can be useful. The other thing I often say, but is that I think the hardest thing to do, is to avoid relying on individual organizations or relying on individual people for your relevance or for your access or your way in. Because I think people can change jobs, organizations can suddenly find that they are not willing to support the work in the same way anymore, or they can't commit so much time. So I normally sort of try and encourage people to diversify the stakeholders they're working with without having, you don't want to be working with dozens and dozens, because then you're just being pulled in lots of directions, but don't rely on individual relationships, hopefully. But that is hard to do in practice.